very quickly, let's go for the lady there in the white dress. Just take the microphone very, very quickly.
Thank you very much.
Say who you are, if it's relevant.
Thank you very much. I'm Christabel Derby, and I serve as the Vice Chairperson for the Commonwealth Youth Council, which is the official representative voice of all 1.5 billion young people.
Very quickly, otherwise I'll stop you. Yes.
Thank you so much. Yes. So throughout our consultation with our young people, we know that young people across our member countries faces unprecedented challenges from unemployment to climate change. So our question is, how will your leadership ensure that the voices and the needs of youth are prioritized in shaping the future of our Commonwealth? And what specific initiatives do you plan to implement to empower the 1.5 billion young people we represent? Thank you.
Just hand the microphone to the gentleman there with his arm up, Patrick. Patrick, yeah. Thanks
very much. Patrick Smith from Africa Confidential. A quick question for Mr. Satipa. Your tenure as Managing Director of the UN Bank, Technology Bank for Less Developed Economies, ended abruptly when the UN oversight body came to your office in Istanbul and dismissed you for a report which found gross irregularities in the management operations of the bank. Now, you've dismissed that report as unfair and untrue. I wondered why you didn't challenge that at the time, and what do you have to say about it now?
This sounds like a very, very complex question there, Patrick, with a lot of allegations in detail that we may not have time to go into, but thank you. This lady here, and then we'll put the three
Hi, Latika Burke from the Nightly Australia. Do you believe the Commonwealth has any role in countering Chinese influence?
Okay, thank you. That was also a question that we had online. Joshua, do you want to address the question from Patrick from Africa Confidential very quickly?
Yes, I was appointed Managing Director in 2018 on a 4-year contract.
Yeah.
That contract was due to end in 2022 in November.
Yeah.
I left the Technology Bank in March to go and stand for elections in Lesotho. Now, what Patrick is referring to is an audit that was done after I'd left. What I have not been part of is that process. But I can tell you that when I left the UN, in March, I left to go and stand for elections in Lesotho. I left on good terms. I left with all my terminal benefits. I still have a good relationship with the UN. Now, most importantly, if there were any issues, I would not have been able to work for the Commonwealth when I did finally come after the elections in Lesotho. Right. So I think, as you say, it's an issue that we can talk about, but definitely not in 2 minutes.
Okay, good. At least we've ventilated it. Yeah. Okay, very quickly, youth and China. What will you do to engage with the youth? And then also, how would you counter the influence in China, which is also a question we got from Rishi Athreya. China is increasingly active in the South Pacific, including Samoa. Many of these countries are dominions. What role can the Commonwealth play in containing China, if indeed you agree with that? Shirley, youth and China very quickly, and I'll come back to you on youth and China.
With the issue of China, the Commonwealth Secretariat supports 56 sovereign countries. Some of those countries have decided that they want to engage China. Yeah. And they have very good reasons why they do that. I believe the best that the Commonwealth can do is to give them the tools to be able to negotiate very well. But apart from that, I do not see how the Commonwealth can influence a country's relationship with China, because these are sovereign countries. So maybe give them the tools to be able to make sure that they get the best out of their relationship with China.
So you can't, but do you think it's desirable?
I do not think for the Commonwealth Secretariat to be involved in that.
Well,
no,
just containing China as a kind of idea. Do you think it's a good idea?
No. Let's not involve the Commonwealth Secretariat in something like that.
Okay.
Because it'll be violating sovereignty.
Okay, fine.
And poking its nose where it's not needed.
You've already talked about civil society, but youth, particularly unemployment, and what would you do about that?
For me, the two issues that confront the 60% of our Commonwealth is the issue of employment. And employment, whether or not the employment, the jobs that the youth are exposed to are suited to industry. For me, this is extremely important. So education, skills training, giving them vocational technical skills is extremely important for them to be able to suit it to the needs of industry. We have the use of AI, artificial intelligence, and ICT. These are areas that now have become very, very useful in countries for the youth to be able to have the skills. Also, the youth should not only be looking at the public sector, because the public sector is too constricted to be able to handle employment for everybody. So that's where innovation startups come in. And I think this is extremely important, that we equip them. And then, of course, we look at ways in which we can help them access funds, seed funds, to be able to start their own employment. Now, the other thing
there were only two questions there.
No, it's civic. It's being involved.
No, but the technology bank was for Joshua. That was the third one.
Oh,
there were only two.
Being
Youth
involved in
China.
the political and the civic conversation in their countries.
Yeah.
Because they're the future of our countries, and they need to be at the table to be part of the conversation that concerns them.
Got it. Tangara, so first of all, on China, should the Commonwealth contain China? Can it contain China?
I don't think that's the role of the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth cannot determine the foreign policy of sovereign states. And I don't think we should be in a logic of trying to counter the influence of a country or an organization. I think the Commonwealth should try to make sure that it has more influence than trying to compete with another country or another organization.
All right.
On the issue of the young
youth,
people, I think they should be part of, they are the present and the future. And that's where I think education and skills development are very important. As a Minister of Higher Education, I was always saying that one of the most important ministries in developing countries, and most of the Commonwealth countries are in fact developing countries, is the Ministry of Higher Education. Because I like to quote a Latin American thinker who used to say that las naciones marchan con el mismo paso.
You love your foreign languages. We've had French. We've got Spanish now. Yes, sorry, go on.
Que camina su educación superior. That if you want to know the evolution of nations, just look at the higher education system today and you'll know what they will be tomorrow. And we are moving towards the digital age. And so it's important to build more capacity to close the digital divide and have young people who are well educated and well equipped, not only to rely on white collar jobs, but to be able to be innovative and creative and create their own things to prosper.
All right. So, Joshua, on China?
I don't think containment is part of the Commonwealth priorities or charter. It's not in the charter. And I also agree with the point that these are sovereign, independent states sitting around the table. And therefore, they have the liberty to decide their bilateral relations. It becomes a Commonwealth issue if those relationships begin to undermine the Commonwealth. So a Secretary General would stay away from that, unless it creates a direct challenge to the implementation of the Charter. Then it becomes a Commonwealth issue. On youth, we all talk about the demographic dividend, which the 1.5 billion people under the age of 30 represents. And it's quite true. But it can only drive the Commonwealth if it is qualitative human capital. So our responsibility, and we already have the infrastructure, we've got the Commonwealth of Learning, the most extensive network of distance learning in the world today. So we need to work through that. We don't have to reinvent the wheel to create and provide the skills that we need to drive the economies of today. We talk about artificial intelligence. How many data scientists do we have in Lesotho today? How can Lesotho participate in the discussions around the potential for AI when we don't even have the basic skills to do that? So we have to invest in building the human capital. Then that demographic dividend is realizable.
All right, great, thank you. So, gosh, lots of questions. Okay, is it just one microphone? Or there are two? Unless you want to ask a question, I suggest you hand a microphone to somebody, this lady here, and then you hand your microphone to, let's go to the young man at the back there, in the grey pullover. Right, very quickly.
Thank you. I'm Professor Fumi Olonishak, King's College, London. I haven't heard from any of the candidates something that tells me this is the thing that is really burning for you, an issue that affects the people in the Commonwealth, on which you will take the agency of the Secretary General. What is your one issue when you think about your legacy? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Legacy, I mean, they haven't even been appointed yet. Yes. Fine. For a question at the back, yeah?
I would like to ask about your practical leadership styles and approaches as individual candidates. As Secretary General, how would you ensure the Secretariat itself is the most effective in its work on a day-to-day basis? I'm hopeful this election is a chance to reinvigorate the Secretariat's potential with new ideas and governance styles. Thank you.
Thank you. And, gosh, okay, so just hand it to the gentleman in the spectacles there, please. Okay, there were two of you, sorry.
Thank you. Stephen Niajetiteria. One of the questions I have is in relation to the rule of law. One of the difficult developments we see around the world are people pulling away from rule of law and access to justice principles. What do the candidates think that the Commonwealth can do to advance rule of law around the world? Thank you.
Okay, so let's, what's the burning issue that you, if you become Secretary General, that you'd want them to say, aha, this is what I'm going to be remembered for? Very quickly.
For me,
Tangara,
it's education. I've been saying that building the human capital is key.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joshua?
Reinvesting in democracy and human rights.
Okay, Shirley?
Climate change, making our country's climate resilient.
Right, okay, three very different answers there. And, you know, we've heard a lot about how the Secretariat functions and so on, and there have been some criticisms about how effective it is and so on. What kind of housekeeping would you carry out there? Shirley?
Well, let me say that I'm outside looking in.
Yeah.
Yes. But I believe that one of the key things that I would want to build is trust and confidence in the Secretariat. And I say this because one of the issues that has plagued the Secretariat is lack of funding for the Secretariat to carry out its projects. And there are countries that used to give money into the CFTC who are no longer doing it. From at 1.34 million, it's now dwindled to 7 million.
And it's often on a project-by-project
and it's
basis.
now on a project-by-project basis, other than putting it in a basket so that it can be used. So for me, this is one thing that I want to work on, which is trust, confidence in the Secretariat, working closely with the Board of Governors, a Board of Governors that are institutionalized in such a way that they can discuss matters of management, audit, and financial matters. So very close working with the Board of Governors.
Yes,
and also building trust and
Joshua.
confidence.
In my experience, an environment that is transparent, that is predictable, is what fosters effectiveness and efficiency in a Secretariat. You have to create an environment, and that's what I would do. I would create an environment that allows that team, and it's an excellent team. I've had the privilege of working with them for 12 months. So I've seen them at work, and I know what they can achieve, given the tools, given the environment that allows them to thrive. Of course, the relationship with member states is very key, because that relationship would allow resources and support to flow. It is very important, but it starts with creating, as the chief executive of the Secretariat, it starts with creating an enabling environment that allows that talent to thrive, that creates predictability, that ensures that the organization, the Commonwealth, already has guidelines, it has rules, it has administrative guidelines. They're implemented in full transparency. And you recognize excellence, and you celebrate excellence, and you also have the courage to stand up and take corrective action when it is required, so that there's predictability. It becomes a problem when staff does not know whether today the approach changes and tomorrow it's a different approach.
I do agree with you. I mean, having had interactions with the people in the Commonwealth, they are an incredible bunch, and all its little satellites, and they do incredible work. I remember going to the Gambia in 2017 as part of a panel of people, and to see, you know, whether Gambia should be reinstated in the Commonwealth. And it really, you know, when you see on the ground what you do and all the conversations we had with the judiciary and civil society and so on, and the report we published, very impressive work a lot of the time, but as you say, not enough resources and funds. So your response, Tangara, to
trust, transparency, and accountability, and work with a team. I believe in teamwork, in team spirit. I always say that the sense of success smells like team spirit, because there are things that I know better than others, but there are many things that others know better than me. So when we work as a team, success will be guaranteed.
Okay, and let's stay with the question of the rule of law, which, you know, the gentleman said we're seeing a sort of creeping authoritarianism and violations of rule of law and so on. We've had a kind of questions like that, or a variation on that theme, but just address very quickly that particular point. Tangara.
Well, rule of law, I think, is key that it's a sine qua non for peace and stability, and we should all endeavor to make sure that we have rule of law. Because where there is no justice, you are creating the recipe, the ingredients for instability and conflicts. So rule of law is key.
Joshua.
You cannot have development or inclusive growth without rule of law. It's as simple as that. So the investment that the Commonwealth has been making over the years in building institutional support or capacity in the judiciary, in other entities at the national level, has to continue. Because that is what will unlock this full potential that we all know exists in the Commonwealth. Whether we're talking about unlocking the full demographic potential of this 1.5 young people that we have, as long as there's no predictability in the application of the rule of the law, that will never be realized. So the investment that I would make and advocate for an increased investment is in that regard. Rule and law is the key to unlocking all the other opportunities that we see.
Shirley?
Rule of law is definitely linked directly to peace and development. And most of our countries need to attract foreign direct investment.
Yeah.
Nobody is going to invest in your country if the judiciary is not seen as competent and just and is able to administer justice as it should. So I believe that this is extremely important, and we need to continue to support countries. The Commonwealth Secretariat needs to support countries, and I believe they're doing that. There's a lot of work that goes into building capacity in Commonwealth countries.
Thank you. We've got 5 minutes left for questions. I favoured that side a bit more, so give the microphone to this gentleman here, and then to the lady at the back, and you give the microphone to this gentleman here at the front. Yeah, go ahead.
So
probably the last round.
I sit on the board of a Commonwealth accredited organisation, the Commonwealth Businessmen's Network. The question is around, look, Paris, the climate change agreement, would never have happened if those heads of government hadn't flown directly from Malta to Paris. There are so many examples of achievements in the Commonwealth. You've all talked about communication, but with respect, very vaguely. So my question is, what specific things would you do to ensure that communications is significantly better so that more people understand the Commonwealth and its achievements?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, who has the microphone? Yeah, go ahead.
William Horsley from the Commonwealth Journalists Association. I would remind you that there is, at the CHOGM Summit coming up, a very practical initiative for accountability. It takes the form of a civil society initiative already approved by law ministers, and it's called the Commonwealth Principles on Freedom of Expression and the Role of Media in Good Governance. I'd put it to you that if that is adopted, and if there are mechanisms and genuine effort is put behind implementing this, that this could be a transformation which achieves accountability and the credibility of the Commonwealth. Can you assure all those concerned, the Commonwealth journalists, parliamentarians, the Human Rights Initiative, and lawyers involved, that this will be treated as real, for a real thing, and taken up seriously and not become window dressing? Thank you.
Okay. Well, it's for late Patricia Scotland, isn't it? Because it's October. But anyway, yeah, fine. Next month. Who had the microphone? Oh, give it to this young lady here, right next to you.
Thank you very much. Katerina Money from Reuters News Agency. My understanding is, from what you said, that you all support reparations for slavery and colonialism. Correct me if I'm wrong. My question is, how exactly will you, as Secretary General, pursue those reparations? Thank you.
All right, okay. So first of all, the question on communications, more effective communications. Joshua.
To be able to ensure that the Commonwealth, from its highest level to the men in the village in Lesotho, understands and appreciates and sees what we do. It's to make sure that we have the presence in the regions, which is why I spoke about strengthening relations with regional entities. We have to be able to communicate and ensure that our messages reach that. But more importantly, we have a network of partners across the Commonwealth, which I think is a missed opportunity, which we have not tapped into. We have to go to those 87 associated organizations. We have to go to that network of civil society entities and continuously engage with them. Because it is only by continuously engaging with them that they are aware of what we do, we are aware of what they do, and we compare notes, but we're able also to ensure that we have an effective way of managing our resources. The challenge right now is that we're sitting in Marlborough House, and nobody knows what we're doing. So communication is very important, but that communication...
But what would you do to make more effective?
I would engage more frequently and more directly with this network. I would ensure that in our work, the work we do, around the table we have all the stakeholder partners.
Wider public?
Wider public through that network of entities, because the network of entities represents that public.
All right, more effective communication, how, Shirley? Briefly?
More effective communication is to work closely with the CSOs, including the Commonwealth journalists. I think it's extremely important. Now, also, to look at the communication department of the Commonwealth and see what can be done. It's not just about putting information on websites, but it's about now ensuring that we reach the people of the Commonwealth, the young people. This is an organization that, and using new methods of the media, whether it's social media, whether it's other forms. This is an organization that has done so much, including the Resilience Vulnerability Index, which was taken to scale by the World Bank. Health worker protocols taken to scale.
So speak up louder about the things.
But we need to speak out loud.
Tangara.
Yeah, I think more outreach programs, having a strong network between Commonwealth journalists, because you cannot also sit in London and be able to speak to the young man in the Gambia or the Fiji. The cultural dimension is very important, so have closer collaboration between journalists and more outreach programs.
All right, talking of journalists, the lady from Reuters is saying, she's got her pen poised, do you all support reparations? Financial reparations, you were saying in particular, or just reparations for enslavement? So be careful, because this is a public meeting and she's going to quote you. So choose your words judiciously. What is your position, very clearly, on reparations? She clearly didn't get it first time. So, Shirley.
Financial reparations is good. However, the conversation is now moving to other reparations in kind. And so either way, it's fine. But I stand for reparations. Whether or not the Commonwealth has a role to play will depend on the heads of government, who will give the Secretary General her marching orders that we want you involved in the conversation of reparations. We want you to put forward a common voice on behalf of all Commonwealth countries.
She's recording you, yes, Joshua?
I support the idea of reparative justice, and I would not wait to be asked to participate. More than half of the members around the table are calling for this to be addressed. But the Commonwealth has a long history of facilitating discussions around difficult issues. We've dealt with racism, which is even more divisive than this. So it should be easy for the Commonwealth to facilitate a discussion around the table between those that are for and those that are resisting, or that are pushing back, or that have a different angle. But the Commonwealth has a role, because it is an issue that affects more than half of the members of the Commonwealth.
Okay, Tangara?
I'm fully in support of reparatory justice, but this is a cause it's a noble cause that has to be championed by member states. And the Commonwealth can use its convening power to facilitate the dialogue and make it happen.
All right, good. And then the final question was sort of about, the CSO initiative and the journalists' rights and so on. You know, how do you ensure that everything you do isn't just merely window dressing? And that will be your final chance to speak, and I'll go by how we spoke originally. You were first, second, third. Tangara.
Well, I don't believe in window dressing. Whatever I do it with conviction. If I don't believe in it also, I will make my position known clearly.
All right, Joshua.
I'm a big believer in liberties, including freedom of expression. So it goes without saying that if I stand for the Charter and I stand for the principles and values of the Commonwealth, supporting freedom of expression is very, very central to that. So I would champion that.
Right, Shirley, briefly.
Partnerships. I believe in meaningful partnerships, not just partnerships as window dressing. And therefore, engagements with partners is extremely important, whether it's CSOs, whether it's a foundation, Commonwealth of Learning, the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. I think that the youth, these are very important linkages that must, the results of the engagements must go into decision making. So for me, this is extremely important, not window dressing, but must result in decision making.
Okay, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, our three candidates for Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Shirley Botchway, Joshua Satipa, and Mamadou Tangara. Thank you all very much indeed. I want to